Hi, my name is Feldman and I'm the CEO of CrowdsUnite. Today I'll be teaching my flagship class, which is Introduction to Crowdfunding. The reason why I started teaching this class is because I realized that no one is really doing it. Everybody is either focusing just on reward-based crowdfunding, and you have classes which teach how to launch a Kickstarter, how to make a video for Kickstarter, marketing techniques, or people teach about equity crowdfunding, and it's more of legal and accounting perspective. For me, all these different types of funding, donations, reward, debt, equity, all similar because it's all funding for the individuals or businesses to get money, and it depends what the business will give back in return for the money. And if you think about that perspective, kind of all these different methods are all kind of underlying very alike. And now there's through the internet and the explosion of these platforms, it creates a lot of confusion for businesses about which platform to use. So what I'm doing in my class, and I've taught numerous times for different organizations, for meetups, um, and what New York City business solutions, small business development centers, and this class basically teaches a high-level overview of the whole industry, and I'm very excited to share it with you today. So let's get started. Introduction to crowdfunding, and like I said before, my name is Feldman, and I'm the CEO of CrowdsUnite. So this is a silly kind of tactic campaign, but I kind of wanted to bring it up that if this person can raise $50,000 for potato salad, then anybody can raise money for anything. And basically the one thing to take away from this is you just need to get enough eyeballs looking at your project, and hopefully part of those eyeballs will be interested and will give you money in the end. And this is kind of it's a bit silly, but this guy had got lots of big media publications like CNN and major other ones covered him. He was on Today's Show and morning shows, and this really brought lots of people looking at this project. And that's something that once you launch a campaign, you need to attract lots of people to look at it, and you want to aim at your specific market. So some background about me. I worked at 6 years investment banks, and then I quit my job to begin the company CrowdsUnite, which is right now the biggest review site in the world for crowdfunding. It's a great resource. It's free to use for anybody. We have over 400 different platforms where you can filter, sort, compare, find the best site for you. There's education materials and also experts to make sure that you are successful. I run a meetup in New York called NYC Crowdfunding, and we have over 600 members currently. I spoke at panels, I write articles. I actually crowdfunding myself on a website called Upstart, where I give percentage of my income to my investors. And there was a January issue of Entrepreneur magazine, which wrote about me and the company. So that's something about myself. So let's get started. So we'll be covering 4 parts. One is what is crowdfunding. This just describes what is new, this crazy phenomenon that's kind of sweeping the world. 2, we'll cover some stats of where we are right now and some projections about the future. The third part, this is the meat of the presentations. We'll be covering all the different types of platforms, the different types, and examples of campaigns. And 4 is some tips of how to actually run a crowdfunding campaign. These tips are something that I gather from going to conferences, talking to experts, reading about crowdfunding, and interacting, on a day-to-day basis. And I also mentioned a couple of tools as well. So what is crowdfunding? So the traditional way for businesses to get money is to go to a bank and to get a loan. How does the bank get the money to lend? It actually goes to the friends, the family, the community, and actually gets money from them and keeps it in the savings or checking account. It gives back to this crowd. Um, it gives back maybe 1-2% currently it's under 1. And back to the person who lend the money to businesses, he does his due diligence, figures out if he's a good investment, and if he is, then they lend at 5-6% or more. So it makes the spread between the lending and the giving back, the 5-6%, the difference. That's the spread that the bank actually makes, and that's how banks traditionally make millions or billions of dollars. But this kind of process broke down, I would say, since 2008. Since the Great Recession, banks stopped lending money to businesses. And it wasn't profitable for them to lend $5,000-$10,000 because of the huge fixed costs that they have. So for them, it's better to move to larger clients where they need to lend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So now the small businesses, which is the lifeblood of the U.S. economy, can't get any funding to support the business. On the other side of the equation, you have the friends, the family that are sick and tired of getting the 1% interest from the bank. They don't want to go to the stock market, which crashed in 2008, and they want to invest in the local communities and the businesses and the friends' businesses and the friends and family. And so around this time, the crowdfunding really exploded, and it connects people who have money with people who need money through websites or platforms. And I'll be using platforms or websites interchangeably throughout the presentations. So what are the benefits? Let's go over. There's other benefits besides just the monetary benefit to the businesses, right? One is they validate the market, that there's a demand for it. So if you're asking for $10,000 to launch a new widget, and you raise the money, that means there's a demand for this product in the market. You acquire customers. So all the people who gave you money to the business idea are your first adapters, your most interested customers, because they love your product so much they're giving you money before you even build it. You get the email contact, and these people who really love your product, they will go to the friends, family, the social media, and they'll post the product because they can be your first evangelist. So you build a marketing as well from crowdfunding. And fourth is feedback. And because you have interaction with these customers, they can give you feedback at the early stage of product development. And this is really critical because you don't want to, traditionally, if you want to build, a new device, you need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars prototyping, building, going to factories, producing, putting in a shelf, and then realizing that no one really wants this product. So now you can actually do this research before you actually spend all this time and money in building a product and launching it, crowdfunding, and figuring out if there's a demand for this product. And maybe people want to change, maybe they want to change some different aspects of the product. And this early feedback is tremendously beneficial to businesses. It's a great marketing research tool. So let's take a look first example. And this will really kind of put crowdfunding on the map, and really what got me personally excited about crowdfunding. So about 2 years ago, as you can see, May 18, 2012, Pebble Watch raised $10 million for their product on Kickstarter from almost 69,000 backers. So the interesting story about Pebble Watch. By the way, this is actually the largest crowdfunding campaign in Kickstarter history, and it's over 2 years old, and no one has since beat this campaign. So it's still pretty amazing. So a little history behind Pebble Watch. It's a couple of guys in their early 20s. They spent a couple of years building a watch which can sync with your iPhone or Android, and can easily, you can see the time, the text messages that come in. So kind of a smart watch. And they went to a venture capitalist and they got denied because venture capitalists didn't see a need for it. So they decided to launch a Kickstarter campaign, and initially they asked for only $100,000, and for the rewards, basically I believe something like $300, you get pre-sale of the first smartwatch, which they promised to ship, 6 months or a year after the campaign's over. And instead of $100,000, they raised $10 million. And after they raised $10 million, venture capitalists actually came to them and wanted to invest in them because this really validated their business model and it found product market fit. Um, and they got the customers, they got the marketing. This really exploded, so they got free marketing from huge publications because of this project. So it touched on every single point that I talked. And if they just went to venture capitalists, got the money, they would have not got the benefit that they received from doing a crowdfunding. So a really well done crowdfunding campaign is tremendously beneficial, and not even if you break even on the money, does if you get all the benefits that we talked about, it is very good for your business. Because a lot of companies pay thousands of dollars for marketing, and this is marketing you get for free. So what are the challenges of actually doing a crowdfunding campaign? One is first you expose your product to the world. So people might steal your idea, and that happens. You need to make sure if it's that easily stealable, get your patent protection, your IP protection, or don't launch it if you feel like if somebody else can go and just easily steal the idea. That is don't do it. Keep it secret, and maybe it's not the right thing to do. And one thing throughout this presentation is I want to show is crowdfunding is not best for everybody. It's a good for people in certain circumstances. When you have a big crowd, that's number two. Is that you need the crowd. You need to be, you know, extrovert. You need to be, be able to put your idea out there. You need to. It's good, really good if you have a product, a pre-sale. So it works in certain circumstances. Sometimes, if you need money quickly, if you need a large sum of money, then crowdfunding may not be the best fit for you. And so that's something that hopefully this presentation can really help you out and realize even if it's not the right fit for you, that means that at least you learn something as well. Because you need a crowd. You asking money from the crowd. So you need to have a community network behind your idea, behind your business that can go and can support you. If you don't have a crowd, then you need to get a crowd, right? So you need to go to meetup, LinkedIn groups, events, community events, or to media that talks to your potential customers. Go find bloggers, Twitter influencers, anybody who talks to your potential target audience. You need to find them and get your message across through those channels. And sometimes these people, the whole point is you reach out to your community, but you want to attract people who are outside your circle of friends, and these people who never seen you before, and you need to build a trust with them. And that's really hard because traditionally, if you're raising money, you talk to people face to face, and you get the trust face to face. Now you're doing it through the internet. So how do you build a trust? Having a video, selling your story, telling about your personal experience. I think social media is pretty influential here. All those crowdfunding sites have Facebook integration, and some of them have other social media integration, and that kind of shows you, kind of validates who you are as a person by putting your Facebook integration into it. And if you do something suspicious, then all your friends will know that you've done it. So you need to, one is prove trust of who you are, and two, kind of validate that you can deliver on the rewards and the goal that you promised to deliver on. And that's also, you have to show your credentials that you can actually complete the project that you promised. So now that people are giving you money, now what do you give them back? So this is where different types of crowdfunding come in. There's donation, reward, lending, which is a loan, equity, you give part of the company away, or royalty, which is where you're giving part of your future proceeds. And we'll cover each one of these in detail later on. So let's talk about some of the stats. So the whole industry actually did not exist 10 years ago, and now it's estimated to be about $10 billion, and it's actually doubling every single year. One of the first crowdfunding campaign platforms that launched is actually Kiva in 2005. And Kiva is not really crowdfunding; it's a micro lending site which allow people in the first world countries to give small loans to people in developing countries, which are 0% loans. So if they give 100, they give back 100. The interesting fact about Kiva, since 2005, it gave over $500 million, and it has a 99% repayment rate, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Because this you're giving money to some poor farmers who have no financial history, um, pretty much very little education, and they still repay those loans. So, it kind of puts trust that crowdfunding could work in the future with very low fraud. So in 2006, Prosper and 2007 Lending Club, which are two biggest lending sites out there. In 2008, Indiegogo and 2009 Kickstarter launched, which are the two largest reward-based sites. And then followed by that by equity sites like Circle Up in 2011 and Funders Club in 2012. And donation sites are kind of spread around these sites right now. So the whole industry is pretty much doubling every single year. By industry report by Mass Solution, estimated in 2013 it was about 5 billion. 2014 should be seen about 10 billion, and if the growth continues, it would be about 30 billion in 2016. So majority of that comes from lending, which is Prosper Lending Club. Um, Equity is still very small because the rules from the Jobs Act have not been finalized yet by SEC. Once that's finalized, we'll be seeing a lot more on the equity portion, I believe. And the reward nation about the same, around 1.3, 1.4 billion. Okay, so this is the fun part. Let's talk about different types. So let's say you really want to start crowdfunding. Where do you start? There's hundreds of different crowdfunding platforms spread around donations, reward, debt, equity, and a few in royalty. So as a business owner, as an individual, where do you go to raise money? Yeah. So let's go every single one, type of funding one by one, and we'll follow this order: donations, reward, debt, equity, royalty, because I believe this is the logical order. If you can do donation, do donation. If you can't, then do reward. If you can't do reward, then do debt or equity. And I'll talk about royalty, which is very new right now, but I think it's very interesting. So donation is when you give a simple thank you. I mean, nonprofits or philanthropic project have been using it for, I don't know, for the past century, please. The interesting fact about donation is that it's actually a $300 billion industry in USA, which is 10 times larger than the VC industry, which is estimated to be about $30 billion. So one of the problems in donation industry is actually 10% charities give less than 65% of donations to their causes. So it means 35 cents, over 35 cents of every dollar that you give goes to administration costs, and goes to the marketing and expenses, and raising donations. So this is where I think crowdfunding can really come in and help these charities reducing those administration costs. So let's go over some of the top platforms. So there's GoFundMe, which is a really great site for individuals if you want to fund me, if you want to fund yourself. Um, I searched for Sandy a few months ago and it got over 740 results. And this is for the hurricane people who got affected by Hurricane Sandy. You Caring, it's a great site. Has no fees. And it's actually a top-rated site on my website CrowdUnite, and people are pretty happy with it. Give Forward, it's a donation site, but it's a niche site, and it's focused only on medical expenses, and it has reached over $100 million for medical expenses. So it looks like that they're doing really well on that vertical. Um, and so if people want to raise money for some sort of medical, surgeries or anything related to that. Give Forward seems like they're doing a really good job in that area. We Did is actually a Brooklyn-based company focused on nonprofit. And there's a lot of sites that do nonprofit work, and if you're a nonprofit, you should really find platforms that you can work with because not all websites support nonprofits, and you want to make sure that if people give you money through those platforms, that it is tax deductible. So just make sure you work with platforms that support nonprofits. And I want to give you an example that how nonprofits actually use crowdfunding. Because if you think about, you know, nonprofits already use crowdfunding. If you get something in the mail from Red Cross, and they ask you for a donation, that's pretty much crowdfunding. They go into the crowd and they ask you for a donation, and they've been doing that for the past 100 years. The problem with it is it's outdated. You give money, you have no idea what the money is going for. How much benefit, how much of the money actually gets eaten up by expenses or other elements. Um, so now, what nonprofits can do is actually give more power to the individuals. So one example that I want to show that I think really can really show how nonprofits can use crowdfunding to their advantage and where I see the future of nonprofits are with crowdfunding is this example by a company called, actually a nonprofit called Harold Hunter Foundation. It's a nonprofit in New York City. And last year they launched this campaign where we did it, asking for $10,000 to send, I believe, about 200 kids to a skate camp. And what ended up is they actually raised twice as much, about $22,000. So they raised twice as many kids to the skate camp as they initially wanted. And afterwards, they showed video of these kids in the camp. And so the people who gave money to this campaign, they chose where the money goes to. Right? And they validated this is the product they want to, and they chose it. And then they could communicate, with the project leaders as well through We Did It. And the leader can actually, after the project successful, they can post pictures saying, "Hey, we actually, this is your money, really went to this project, and you can see the results of your labor." So the whole point of crowdfunding is one thing that I want you to take away is crowdfunding removes the middleman in the equation, which reduces the transactional cost, and everybody wins. The people who have money and the people who receive money. So, for example, if it's a banking transaction, the banks get removed, and the money goes directly from people who have money to the people who need money. In the nonprofit world, basically the decision making, is kind of taking away from the nonprofit. So this will reduce the administration costs, and the people can pick which project they want to give the money, and they basically vote for the project with the money. And you can see this again and again with the music industry, where the music artists can go directly to the fans, removing the record labels, which is the middleman. In the movies, in books as well, So people, let the fans, let the crowd decide who needs to get funded with the money, and so you don't need these big middlemen like which exist currently. So I think most of them will shrink in size or disappear, and and people will be able to fund the projects, the individuals that they want to fund. And this is the future where crowdfunding is going to, and this is what I'm very excited about crowdfunding. So let's move on to the next one, which is reward base. And the reward base is, it's very new because this actually doesn't exist um, in traditional world. Banking, venture capitalists, nonprofits. This doesn't exist. So this is new concept that came out only on the internet in the last 7, 8 years. And this is for the money you give back a good or a service. So it's really good for pre-sale items because you can actually reduce the cost and saying, hey, if you give me money now, it will be 25% cheaper when we launch in a year. So it works really well for pre-sale. It works really well if you have a big, large audience. The stats that we've seen before is 1.3 billion. Average size is 2,300, and this is by the Mass Solution Industry Report. Um, but Kickstarter is one of the largest ones here, and Kickstarter has actually, I think, about $10,000. That's the average raise on Kickstarter. So Kickstarter is about 4 times larger than the industry. And one thing that I want you to also look and pay attention to is that there's over 50% failure rate with reward base. And this is because it's so easy to launch a campaign. You just go to these sites, you fill a form, and you can launch this next day. And that's why a lot of projects fail. And you really need to do your homework and preparation, and build a crowd, build a movement behind your idea. Make a nice video, and I'll be talking more about all these tips about how you do it successfully. But don't just go and launch a project. Really do your homework behind it. So one of the biggest platform, which I think is the 500-pound gorilla in the room, is Kickstarter. So Kickstarter in 2013, had 3 million pledged, $480 million, and that's like a third of the whole industry is just focused on this one website. It has over 73 projects, raised over $1 million, and in 2013 it reached $1 billion in funding. So it's a great site. Um, it's all nothing, so you have to reach the full amount that you said, and they take a 5% fee from that. It has a great community, so if you can launch with them, and you get high up in on the front page of a specific category, the community comes back and will support you. And these are the people who just kind of look over the site and explore the different projects that they like. And Kickstarter does send like a newsletter as well, to all the backers. So if you get high up in Kickstarter, the community in Kickstarter can come back and support you. They do a vetting process as well, so you need to be approved by Kickstarter. But recently, they actually sent a newsletter saying that they relaxed their vetting process. And as you can see, the potato salad that launched, a few months prior, is actually on Kickstarter, and so I believe their vetting process is very much reduced. So pretty much in the past they wanted more artistic projects for specific project goals, not somebody who wants philanthropic or medical related, but someone who has a specific project. Now they're a little more relaxed with that ruling. Indiegogo is another big competitor. Is open for everybody and anywhere. It's open in any country. Um, it's a great site. They really improved a lot in the last couple of years. It looks great. It allows you actually to launch a project on their site, and it gives you even the code to launch it on your own website. So it's 4% for nothing, or 9% um, flexible. So basically, if you don't reach your full amount, you can still get the money, but they'll be charging 9%. And above all these fees, there's still transactional fees, which is usually about 3%. RideCorp is a great site here in New York City. It's similar to Indiegogo, but it's smaller and they get a little more involved with your project and have a good review and customer service. I know the guys personally behind the site, and I think that they're doing a pretty excellent job. PopSlush is a niche site focuses on authors. So I believe there will be specific niche sites for specific verticals, and this is a really great site which focuses just on authors. So instead of going to a publisher, you can launch with them and publish a book. You can do pre-funding, so before you even finish the book, you can actually get funding from your fans, and you can interact with them. You can offer them different rewards, like you can put them in the book, for example, or you can give them special unique copies of the book. And I know the team behind PubSlush very well, and I think they're very excellent. They, enthusiastic. They know they can actually talk to you, interact with you, and give you tips, help you build the campaign. So for authors, I think this is a great site to use. Crowdsold is a newcomer, but they raised a lot of money in Silicon Valley, and this they can really. So they're pretty much similar to most other sites, but their fees are great. They only charge you 2.5% fees, and they actually give you a free $20. And the free $20, if you go to CrowdsUnite and you go to Crowdsold profile page, if you go to them through our site, you get $20 free on your first campaign. And Crowdsource actually built code for Crowdsource Open. And Crowdsource Open is actually a free crowdfunding on your website, or you can launch it with them. And this will allow you to actually launch a whole crowdfunding for free, and there's no fees out there. So if you go to search Crowdsource Open or go to CrowdsUnite and search for Crowdsource Open, you'll find a link for it. Ignition Deck is if your site runs WordPress, this is a plugin which allows you to actually incorporate crowdfunding into your website. And the reason why I mention it here is because the largest reward-based crowdfunding project so far use this to raise money. And when I teach a class, this is where I do the audience participation part, and I ask people, what do you think is the largest crowdfunding project so far? And and I ask how many people want to think it's over 10 million, which is what Pebble did, and maybe less than half raise their hand. And I say, who thinks it's less than 20 million? And maybe like 2 or 3 people raise their hand. And I say, who thinks it's over 30 million? And no one raised their hand. And which is really surprisingly, because the largest crowdfunding campaign so far is this one, and it's called Star Citizen. It's a computer game, and it raised over $44 million from over 300,000 people, and that's pretty huge if you think about it. That's huge number of people giving money to a game that does not even exist. The reason they could accomplish this is because they had a huge fan base. The person who who did this game, he did lots of games in the 90s, including I think a game called Wing Commander, which was awesome. And he decided to basically build a game in space with 3D worlds and spaceships. And instead of going through traditional means through game publishers and trying them to back his game, he went directly to his fans. And his fans just ate it up and gave him money. And for as a reward for $50, you get your own spaceship, or you get your own player. And what he does interesting is he does these stretch goals. So if you see here stretch goals, so basically he says, hey, we raised 44 million, and for 45 million, we unlock this new cartography. For 46 million, we'll build a new a new planet that everybody can visit. So having these stretch goals is a good way to incentivize people to come back and keep giving money, because if you raise your goal, then the people won't have incentives to give you more than than the goal. So this is used a lot in Kickstarter. For example, let's say you ask for $10,000 for to build something, and you get to 10,000 the first week, and you have 3 weeks to go. So now people say, hey, okay, you already raised the money. Why do you need to raise more? Because you can build that. So you say, well, for if I raise $20,000, I will build something bigger or better or add new features to it. So that's something you need to think about is, you know, what you should do is to set the minimum possible goal that you need to achieve something, and then have these stretch goals to see, hey, if when I raise more, these are stretch goals that will incentivize people to come back and give you more. Okay, so let's move to the next one, which is debt. And that is pretty much similar as when you go to a bank and get a loan. You give back interest and principal to your backers or lenders. And it's really good if you have cash flows, if you can pay back the interest and the collateral, principal. Um, it's a huge industry. This is probably the biggest industry in crowdfunding so far. And it started really Lending Club and Prosper, the two largest companies for individuals to raise money. So it's individuals giving money to other individuals. Well, Lending Club is actually, now a lot of institutions, are participating in these sites as well. And Lending Club, has over $4 billion, and Prosper has over $1 million. It's really great for individuals to get really good interest rates, above 8%, and for people who have high credit cards where they have 18-20% interest, they can refinance them with these sites for a much lower rate. Common Bond is a company also here in New York which does this for student loans. So now student loans can actually, so alumni in universities can back students in the schools, and they can get decent returns. I think around like 6, 7, and the students also get a lower interest rates as compared to going to the government. Cabbage is a business loan. There's a couple of them that launched the last couple of years, which is Cabbage, On Deck. Um, those are the big ones out there. So this is for businesses that want loans, and you can get loans actually really quickly within sometimes a day or two, and I think the longest is maybe like a week to a week, and they can quickly look at your returns and your receivables. They can you need to give them access to your bank account, and they can lend based on your receivables, or they can lend directly to you. And they have a limit usually between $30,000 or $50,000, and pretty high interest rates sometimes. But if you need loans quickly, and they have a high acceptance rate compared to traditional bank loans. Funding Community is a company here in New York, and it's still very small. But the reason why I want to mention it is actually it's one of the few crowdfunding lending sites, and by that I mean all those benefits that I talked before about the benefits of crowdfunding. You can't do it with these sites, Lending Club, Prosper, because the rules are still not in effect yet, the Jobs Act rules. And so basically, you do get the money, but you don't know who's giving you the money. And so you can't really interact with them and get benefits. Funding Community kind of goes around those rules and allows you to actually interact with your lenders. And GiveUsUp is actually, Give one of the first crowdfunding sites. GiveUsUp actually is a new initiative by them where they give you a 0% interest loan up to $5,000. So I think what I see what's going on with that is once the new rules come out, I believe actually some of these sites or maybe new website come out where you can actually not only get the loan, but you can get a loan from your community, from your friends, your family, and you get these other benefits. What that I talked before. Validation, customer acquisitions, marketing, as well on top of the money. Alright, so equity. Equity is only for businesses when you're giving ownership of the company to your investors. It's great for growing companies, especially the ones which have an exit opportunity. An exit opportunity means you either sell the company or go public. because that's only the way which your investor can actually recoup the money back, besides dividends. It's still very small. It's only been 165 million in 2013, but it's growing. There's the current sites in U.S. only allow accredited investors, and accredited investor is an individual who's making over 200,000 income a year, has a net worth over um, a million, and or him and the spouse, if the individual is married, him and the spouse needs to make over 300,000 income. So right now there's only about 8 million accredited investors in U.S. So only those 8 million can participate in equity crowdfunding websites. The rest of us actually can't do it, and we'll need to wait until SEC finalizes the ruling. So this is actually probably a good time for me to just quickly go over the ruling, because I think I mentioned it a couple of times. So the ruling that I've been talking about is the Jobs Act that came out in 2013. Is it? No, not what. So it's about 2 years ago, which is 2011. 2011, right? 2012. 2012. Okay. So about 2012. Which there's been a couple section in the Jobs Act. The second section, Title 2, is in effect, which means which removes the ban for general solicitation. And what that means is now people who are raising money from accredited investors can actually advertise to accredited investors. So now, before you couldn't advertise, you couldn't go on a radio station or TV station, or putting in a poster saying, "Hey, we're looking for money." Now you can do it. So now this is very interesting, because now, because of the 8 million accredited investors, only 5 or 10% of them are active angels, which participate in funding. The rest of 90% are not. Those are doctors, lawyers who make over 200,000 but are not considered investors. So now, for the first time, you can actually go and advertise to those individuals, and get the rest of those 90%, you know, into investing industry. So it's very interesting. Title 3 of the Jobs Act will expand that from the 8 million to the rest of the population, which working age could be about 150 million people. So that will basically allow people, anybody from general public, to invest in companies, in private companies, before they go public. So these are individuals which can invest. I mean, there's limitations. They can only invest, up to 2,000. There's limitations, like they can invest either 2,000 or 5% of their income, and the companies can only receive $1 million per year. So there's still some limitation. I don't want to go too much into that because it's still not finalized. But that's something that's in the pipeline and hopefully should be out there, by 2015 or end of 2015. So right now, these are the websites which are live, which allow for businesses, private businesses, to raise money uh, from accredited investors. So AngelList is a big listing of sites, and they recently launched syndicate deals where angels can group together and invest in private companies. CircleUp is a great company. It's a niche site where it focuses on consumer goods, and they raised over $20 million. I think over 20 companies so far. CVS company here in New York. I know the team pretty very well. They came to my meetups. I think they're doing an excellent job. So if you're in New York, you should definitely go talk to them. There's a couple other guys in New York, like Return Change as well. They're doing very interesting stuff as well. So royalty. Royalty is basically new concept, but I like it because there's no bankruptcy risk for companies as there are if you're taking a loan. So in this way, you're giving percentage of your revenue. So you give money only when you make money. So no bank service, no equity loss. It's really good for businesses, but only a few companies support it. So the only ones I know, which is Bolster, is for businesses, and PAVE is for individuals. So basically, an individual raises money and in return gives a percent of their income for the next 5 or 10 years. Very interesting concept. Both of them launched last few years. Really interesting to see how this developed, but I think it's kind of very new way of raising money, and I think it's kind of beneficial to both business and individuals to do it using this way. So that's it for platforms, and here's a couple tips about how do you actually begin the campaign process and run it. So campaign building. The first thing you should do is do your research. One of the good tools is actually a part of a company called Crowdfunding for All, and what they do is they aggregate projects from Kickstarter, Indiegogo, RocketHop, and a couple other reward-based sites. So it's a really good research tool because let's say you search for phone case, like in this example, you can filter just Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and it shows you either three projects which has phone case in their description, in the title, and now you can actually go into it and figure out. You can apply other filters out there. You can figure out you know which projects are similar to mine. Which platforms work very well. What did they do correctly? What was the video? What rewards they offered? So do your research first on the projects and figure out which platform is good for you. And maybe we'll give you some tips about how to structure your campaign. Big thing is your story, which is potentially your video. And your video, like I mentioned here, is did I mention it? Video gets double the amount of projects with video gets twice as much funding as projects without video, because people want to connect with you, and the video is one of the best ways you can connect with your backers. And usually a good video should be under 2 minutes, and it's similar to an elevator pitch, right? You tell them who you are, what's the problem you're trying to solve, what's your solution, why are you the best person to solve it, and what's the goal you're trying to achieve, what are you going to do with the money. And if you can do a story in it is the best way of kind of selling yourself. And this is why people give you $50 for a t-shirt, is because they want to see the story, they want to believe in you, and they want to support you, and you need to really connect with them using that story. Duration is usually 30 days is better than 60 days. So, typical campaign will run 30 days, but you definitely need to spend, 2 or 3 months before you launch the campaign to do your research, your campaign, your marketing, building the crowd. Um, Tipping point. So there's a couple platforms that actually mention this, and it seems pretty universal. Is that 30% is kind of the ideal tipping point. So what I tell people is make sure you have 30% funded up front. So if you want to raise $30,000, you need to have $10,000 funded from your initial group of people, your friends, your family, your customers, the group that you really well connected. They need to give the first third, and hopefully the second third will come from their influences, and the last third will come from from the platform, from marketing, from people who have no connection with you, but they'll see that the project is almost funded, and if they like what they see, they'll fund you. Because people, if your project has zero funding, then people who are not connected to you will not give you money because they won't believe that there's that you will succeed. So people want to see that there's at least some money, you know, being funded. They want to see some success, and if they like the project, then they'll support you. So you need to have the initial funded before you even start the campaign. The goal is, you need to set an achievable goal, like I mentioned. Set the minimum possible goal, but do have stretch goals, planned out in case you reach the goal fairly quickly. Rewards is what do you give back? So most common rewards is around 25, average is 75. You should have a $1 reward for those people who want to support you, but they don't want to get anything back. Um, if you need to get something related to your product, hopefully you can get them involved in the process somehow. And you need to think of very creative rewards and into your process. For example, here's an example from Veronica Mars. She was launching a movie which raised I think like $2 or $3 million, and this is the biggest reward that she had. For $10,000, you can be in the movie, and this reward was gone in the first day. Because and she only had one reward like this, so it was very limited. And people who really were really passionate about the movie really it really spoke to them. And she had really other interesting rewards. For a few $100s, she can give you a call or leave you a message, or you can get a signed copy of the movie or something. So really figure out which rewards have some early bird rewards. So the first 50 get a reduced price. The next 50 get a little reduced price. Um, you can get very unique rewards. For example, like this one, there's only one, which you can have only one reward. And limiting those numbers kind of really creates like this urgency. There's only limited number of these kind of special rewards. So campaign running. Um, Let me see. So how do you build your campaign and promote? This is probably the biggest question that people ask me. And what I tell them is first create. There's two landing pages companies that I mentioned here. One is LaunchRock, which is a free site and lets you build kind of like a launch page like this. So if you don't have a website, create a launch page list where you can just get people's email address. Or there's a site called Prefundia, also a free tool, allows you to build a kind of crowdfunding campaign, but instead of actually people buying it, you get the email address. And what this really does is helps you. If you have a website, you can build this on your website somehow, but you need to spread the word, get people interested in your product before you launch, and capture the email address, capture their information. So when you launch, you can actually email them, and hopefully you need to figure out what's the goal. Can you get a 30% upfront somehow? So you not only do you need to get their email address, but you want to know how much they actually will contribute to your project. And a couple of generic tips is while you're running is communication. Do send weekly updates to your backers. 75% of all Kickstarter projects are late, so that's not a problem. And they late not because they want to be late, but that just happens. Because they didn't anticipate all the things that they need to do while doing the project. So but the thing is, people don't really complain as long as you kind of keep people in the loop and tell them, hey, we just went to China and our vendor, is really bad, so we're switching them and it's going to delay, our watch for next month. So if you really explain to them that you are really trying to achieve, the timeline, but there's some obstacles along the way, and there's no other way, people will be fine with that. So communication is very important in the process. And fulfillment, that's something you also need to figure out is, how am I going to actually ship them, tax them, deliver the product, make the product. There's a couple other sites, actually, businesses that kind of sprung up the last couple of years, which can help you with the process. We mentioned a couple of them on our site, CrowdsUnite, but that's something that you need to figure out to do as well, because there's been cases where there's been, project was successfully funded, but after everything, and after they ship the product, they actually lost money on Kickstarter. So that's something you will need to think about. So That's pretty much it. So again, my name is Alex Feldman. My email is alexfeldman@crowdsunite.com. Please check out the website, crowdsunite.com. If you're in New York, the meetup that I run is called NYC Crowdfunding, and we are available for consultation. And the link is you can find it on our website. And basically, consultation with us is either you can talk to me, ask me questions, or I can get more involved and kind of learn about your business and figure out which platform is best for you. And I can give you like a launch plan for your campaign, and I can connect you to other professionals to make a video, marketing, campaign building. I'm not, I don't get involved with actually the campaign process, but I'll be happy to refer you to people who will help you in that process if that's what you need. Um, so yeah, so this is it. So thank you for listening to me. It's been a pleasure, and happy crowdfunding.